So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to World Dyslexia Awareness Day. It's a webinar on what I wish I'd known, 20 years of learning from students who learn differently. I'm Deborah Hughes, Director of Communications, Engagement and Fundraising at the Dyslexia Association of Singapore. And it's my pleasure today to have you with us during your lunch hour. This webinar is a very special one. It's a masterclass. It brings together 4 of DAS's most experienced leaders, Dr. Geetha, Dr. Siew, Dr. Priscillia, Shen, and Dr. Edmen, Leong, who together have nearly 80 years of experience supporting individuals who learn differently. Now, having 4 PhD qualified leaders within one organisation is something truly exceptional. It's even rare among educational institutions, and it speaks volumes about DAS and its commitment to research-driven practice, lifelong learning and innovation, and how we understand and support our students who learn differently. Now, over the years, these 4 educators have taught thousands of students, trained countless teachers, and have influenced national conversations on learning differences. This comes from decades of walking alongside students who teach us as much as we teach them. Now, this webinar will be the part of our DAS podcast series, Same But Different, which many of you have been following. This will be episode 6, and when you hear it, you will know why it's going to be one of my favourites. At the start, you'll hear Geetha saying, someone thought this was a good idea for all 4 of us to get together. Well, I must confess, that was me. And after listening to this conversation that they have today, I think you'll agree with me that it was a very good idea. It is quite an inspiring webinar. And after the presentation, all 4 will be here to answer any questions you may have, and you can submit them in the Q&A session. So I hope you can sit back and enjoy this masterclass.
Hi everyone. So someone thought it was a good idea for all 4 of us to get together and do a podcast for World Dyslexia Awareness Day.
We definitely should. After all, we have been in this field for 21 years.
That's right. So I'm Geetha, and as June mentioned, I've been at the DAS and working in this field for 21 years.
And I'm June. So like Geetha, I have been an inclusive educator for 21 years. How about you, Priscillia?
20 years, just 1 year short. How about you, Edmen?
Well, I've only been working with you guys for 15 years, so I'm the youngest here. So I need a lot of learning. I need to learn a lot from you ladies. But if you add all of the number of years we have together in this room, that is a total of 77 years. That is a lot of experience.
That's a nice number.
Yes, 77 years.
Yeah.
So which is why we came up with this topic, right? What I wish I'd known, 20 years of learning from students who learn differently.
Yes.
So let's start with the youngest of our group, Edmen. So can you recall a student who have completely changed how you think about teaching?
So I recall the very first teenage student I had. He was a 14-year-old boy when I first taught him. So he left a really lasting impact because when I first met him, he was very bright, he was very talkative, very eloquent. But the moment we shifted our activity to a reading activity, he really changed from somebody who's very lively and confident to somebody who looks very embarrassed and withdrawn. So this painful contrast showed me how deeply academic struggles can impact a child's sense of self. It has also taught me that teaching is not just about teaching skills, but also being aware of the emotional challenges of the children that we serve. This child that I taught, right now he's an adult. So many years later, this is actually a happy ending because he's thriving in his workplace. And this is really a testament to his resilience and growth, right? So this experience really shaped me. It helped me realize that one of my earlier mistakes as a teacher was focusing a lot too much on skills and neglecting the emotional aspects of the students that we are serving. So really, with this in mind, Geetha, I was wondering whether you can share one of your early mistakes that you have made that taught you any lessons.
One mistake, because there have been several. But this one was a true awakening. So while teaching literacy, paramount to me was being the champion of the students, making sure that they knew someone was looking out for them. And I had this adorable, very compliant class of 8-year-olds, right? And anything you ask them to do, they would do. They were not task avoidant. They were very cheerful. It was really a very fun class to teach. So one day, it's business as normal. I asked one of the students, can you tell me the spelling rule? So I was asking her to recall a specific spelling rule. And she just stared at me. So maybe a little over-enthusiastic in my response. I went like, you can do it. I was trying to be encouraging. But she ended up bursting into tears. She just burst into tears. It was totally unexpected. I was stunned. So later when she calmed down and I talked to her, she said she cried because she felt like she was letting me down because she couldn't remember it. I mean, that moment taught me something very vital. When it comes to misbehavior or disruptive behavior, our antennas are up. We're very quick to try and uncover what's bubbling beneath the surface. But when children are cheerful, compliant, we tend not to, or at least I didn't. And I assumed that everything would be fine. And, what I say may not have that kind of impact that it did have with her. So, I mean, Edmen, what you said, it's absolutely correct. The struggles are sometimes quite deep and we really have to dive deep to get to them. And we also know children yearn for someone who believes in them. And once you've created that connection with children, then, there's a greater responsibility because whatever you say can either raise them up or it can weigh them down.
True.
And so it was that moment, it was that mistake when like the words of Aristotle, really came to light to me. It just came alive to me. So Aristotle said, those who can do, those who understand, teach. So, I mean, when we truly understand our students, they feel safe because we remove all the risks. And when they feel a sense of belonging because they know that, we can see who they really are. So then teaching shifts from being a science to an art and then magic, right? Because you finally truly connected with your students. And I know June and I were batchmates and we in fact started out with classrooms right next to each other.
That's right.
And we have spent several moments, more than several moments, gasping over some of the mistakes we have made.
right.
So I mean, June, how about you?
Right. So I still, think about a student I had in my early teaching years with some regret. So he was a child who wouldn't admit his mistakes. Every time I corrected his spelling, he would push back, insisting that he was right. So even if it means like erasing it right in front of me, he would do it. And then he said that's what I wrote.
So the teacher can't see it.
That's right. So he thought I wasn't looking, right? And then, he would just insist that he got it right the first time. But later it hit me. He wasn't being difficult. So he just didn't feel safe enough to be wrong. And for kids to feel safe, they actually need to know that they are accepted no matter how they perform. And that realization really changed me. So these days, whether as a teacher or as a parent, I live by a new set of rule for myself, which is really connection over correction. And that is a piece of advice that I would give to my younger self. How about you, Pris?
Right. Well, I mean, what I would say to my younger self, I think I would tell my younger self that being uncertain and being overwhelmed is okay. Because just like, what three of you have shared about your students, I think every student have their own journey. And I think every teacher have their own journey as well. So I recall back then, I often question myself, why am I struggling in my classroom? Wow, I think others seem to be okay. And then I also ask myself, like, it's like, why am I struggling with my lesson plans? I've been spending so much time creating resources. And then is it all worth it? And then will my activities actually make a difference to my students' learning? And then there will also be times whereby I'll be struggling with students with challenging behaviors or unmotivated students. And then I will also start to wonder if they actually dislike me. So being a young teacher with very little experience back then, I think I also felt the weight of the parents' expectations. There will be times whereby their questions or their doubts make me second guess about, how competent I am. Am I doing the right thing? Am I truly helping their children? But then fast forward 20 years, all right, I also recently met my ex-student. So my ex-student, he actually remembers his time at the DAS and he really misses it. He was telling me about the words that I said. He was telling me about the things that I did in class. He was telling me about how, my classroom used to look like. And those were little things that I have long forgotten. And so it made me realize that how ordinary these things are to us, they can be extraordinary to them. So they did actually leave a very lasting impression on him. So I think, there is a ripple of effect on our work with these students. And sometimes we just fail to see that when we were present at that time, So I think another thing that I would also tell my younger self is to trust your instinct and don't let your self-doubt, overshadow the little wins. So, the little things that you do matter more than what you think, So confidence will grow not only from knowing all the answers, but being present, being compassionate, I would say, and also, being able to learn alongside with your students. Yeah.
Chris, meeting that student 20 years later,
Yes.
I'm sure it was quite an experience. And the fact that he remembered all of those things that we would not have thought were important, that's quite an affirming experience.
Yes.
And based on the stories that we have shared on our early days, right? A couple of things are clear. One, all individuals, children and adults alike, there's a world of emotions that we go through. Feelings of insecurity, self-doubt, and even hope, right? And second is when a teacher honors the dignity of the student and truly makes an attempt to understand who they really are, and and go beyond the surface, really understand who they are and choose connection over correction. We're not just teaching anymore. We're in fact transforming lives, because that experience with the student of yours as well as yours, Edmen, it's clear that their lives were changed for sure.
Yeah,
and that's really beautifully said, Geetha. I really liked how we say how we're really changing lives. The years of our experiences really shaped how we think and how we teach. So I think with that in mind, I'm just wondering, how has your approach to supporting children with learning differences evolved over the past 2 decades?
Thank you for that question, Edmen. Allows me to redeem myself from my early mistakes, which I shared just now. So in my research, one clear finding is that we need to shift from a deficit-oriented mindset, where children are seen as problems that require fixing, to one that focuses on asset building. So over the years, I've encountered many students who have skills and strengths that will actually help them compensate and support them as they go through their learning journey. But beyond that, strengths are not just a means to an end. It's not just to help you overcome your learning challenges. They shine in their own ways. So the realization that we need to look at strengths, need to focus on assets, changed my practice for sure. I stopped asking, okay, what is wrong with you? What are the areas that you need help with? And instead, I started asking, what are you good at? Where is the gold in this particular child? And we all will find what we are looking for. I mean, we can play this game. I play this game with my kids all the time. I tell them, look out for a black cat. And suddenly they'll see black cats everywhere. And then I'll say, but did you see any tabby cats? Because they've not been paying attention to it. So what you're looking for is what you will find. So by viewing individuals as abled first, right? As having strengths first, my students actually genuinely amazed me with what they were able to do. And when we see students as more strengths-based than deficit-based, they too begin to value themselves. They can begin to see that they have ways to contribute to society. And in these conversations that I have with parents, when I highlight to them the strengths, right, I've actually felt like such gratitude coming from the parents. Because they are so overwhelmed with concern and anxiety and worry about how to help their child overcome their learning challenges. They've not really thought about, or at least no one has told them something that will help them feel positive about the future of their children. So that's another advantage, because once you have parents on board, that's an easier way to help the child. And finally, I think as a community, as a comment on this, on how it has changed my practice, as a community, I think we really do need to reflect on what we emphasize in education. Because if we focus only on weaknesses, then weaknesses become all they are. But when we highlight the strengths, we transform not just their learning, but their whole sense of self. They become strong people.
Absolutely. When we were first trained, it was drilled into us that our students with dyslexia have this and that weaknesses. And therefore, we should approach their learning in a very careful, deliberate and thoughtful way. And that is the traditional model of viewing disabilities. It is not wrong, but like you said, if we lean too much to this side, then their identity is tied only to their limitations. And that is really dangerous. So parents and educators, I think we need to find a balance. Earlier on, you mentioned about looking for this gold in the child.
Yes.
How do we really do that? Is it as simple as saying, since my child is not good at academics, let me look for non-academics that he is good at? Maybe art, soccer, dance, gymnastics.
Okay, so what you've mentioned, those are what I would define as observable talents, right?
Okay.
So let me explain a little.
Right.
So there is a distinction between gifts or multiple intelligences, for those who are familiar with that term, and talents. So gifts are innate. They are usually something you are born with. But for them to become a talent, you actually have to pay attention to them. So either the student has to be aware or someone has to alert them to, hey, you've got this particular gift. So attention has to be given to them and they have to be groomed. These gifts have to be groomed. And there must be a platform for them to showcase these talents so that they can continue to see the value in these strengths. So working on their gifts turns them into talents, which means it is very important that we pay attention to them. So if we don't, the outcome could be something like Singapore might lose potential entrepreneurs or social justice warriors or fashion designers because we have just neglected to focus on the gifts and turn them into talents. Coming back to, I think, what June you were talking about, I think some gifts and talents are easier to spot because they're observable, right? And they're tangible. And maybe also they are valued socially, culturally, economically. So for example, everyone knows that success can be achieved with athletics or maybe even with visual arts. Right. But there are certain other talents that may not come so naturally to someone's understanding that it could lead to success in terms of their future.
Right. So we are really saying that recognizing a child's strengths is more subtle than spotting talents or gifts.
Absolutely, yes.
Right. And it takes keen observation on the part of the parent or the educator. So for a start, I think we can think about strengths in these domains: creativity, communication, literacy, intellect, physical, social. And a simple way to remember this is to use the acronyms CLIPS with a double C.
CC clips.
So
CC clips.
Yeah,
yes.
CC clips.
That's right.
CLIPS, right? Yeah, so I think it's a useful guide for parents and teachers, in fact. So can you remind us, what behaviors that we should be looking out for?
Right. Okay. So I think children who are creative, they love to imagine and create, whether it's drawings, whether it's slime, which irritates me, or Lego. And I think children who are communicative, they express themselves very well, verbally and non-verbally. So they are the dramatic ones, like in relating a story, they will give you your 5 senses and all, right? And children with strong literacy skills, they usually express their strengths through reading and writing. Children with intellect and logic, they are curious about how things work, like cognitive challenges, math, solving puzzles. And finally, children with good physical skills, I think they are usually very agile and they have movement-related strengths. So you might ask, what can we do with these strengths?
Yep.
Right? So looking back at my students, I remember a child with very good physical skills, right? And the child needed to learn the times table. So, but times table memorization is a dread for our kids with ADHD and dyslexia.
Yes, of course.
So how do I use the strength to teach the child times table? So I got the child to actually throw a ball to me to and fro, and each time the child throws it, the child will go 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Yeah. So it's a very natural way. And I think research actually shows that this is a dual task training, which improves our executive function.
Both pathways, right?
Yes.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah. And then there is another example as well. I had another student who was a very creative little girl, but phonics was really hard for her. So to get her to spell, I got her to spot small words in big words. And with that, spelling became possible for her. So this way of learning to spell actually appealed to her creative strength. Yeah, so I think when we use strengths to help them learn, learning becomes so much more pleasant. And this first sweet taste of success is so important in giving them that dose of confidence to do more. Yeah.
Absolutely. Actually, the story that you shared about the little girl and her creativity reminds me of my daughter, because that's how she learns spelling.
Okay.
She'll sing out the letters
Right.
with a tune that's based on a song that she likes at that moment.
Okay.
And that is the way, and she will be writing it as she's singing. So absolutely, there are ways for us to leverage on their strengths.
Yes.
And these strengths, of course, hints at something else that they might be able
That's
to
right.
achieve in the
Yeah.
future.
Yeah. Yeah.
So clearly what we are saying is what works for a child depends on the child. And of course, the teacher's ability to identify these strengths that will work. So we need to be flexible and nimble when working with children. But see, now here's where we have to take a pause. Surely with teaching, there must be some non-negotiables, some things that you cannot avoid, right? So Edmen, what are your non-negotiables when supporting diverse learners?
So for me, the non-negotiable in teaching is what surrounds teaching. So this is really the social support circle that a child has with regards to their developmental years. So in fact, a lot of the examples that June and Geetha, you mentioned earlier, did involve a social circle. Did involve you as educators or parents supporting that child, right? So this social support goes beyond academics. It goes beyond really the skills that you are teaching the child. It is really about making the students feel very valued, helping the students' self-esteem grow. And it really helps them with resilience and helping them with that perspective of continuing to learn and wanting to learn more. So I've seen this in 2 examples. I'll share 2 examples. The first is really in my research. I spoke with readers who really enjoyed books and enjoyed reading despite struggling to read. Right? So they enjoyed reading despite struggling to read. So their success didn't come from having fewer challenges. So in fact, they really mentioned how they struggled since their growing up years. But it came from how they were able to work around their challenges. And this is done through resilience. And how this resilience came about was because every single one of them had one significant adult who supported them along the way. So this is that social circle that I was talking about, right? So that made them feel cared for, and that made them understand that it is possible for them to read. My second example is a little more personal. A few years ago, I fostered a child with dyslexia. So at first, I thought it was the perfect match because I had so much experience, I had years of experience working with students with dyslexia. But very quickly, I realized that I was wearing the wrong hat, right? So I was wearing the hat of an educator, but what I needed to do was wear the hat of a parent. And what she needed wasn't another reading rule or another reading strategy. What she really needed was a parent's presence, love, and assurance. So true enough, once she felt safe and loved, so I didn't need to do all these spelling rules. Learning became a lot more natural and easier when she had that feeling of love.
Yeah, so I do agree. I do agree with you, Edmen. I think one of my non-negotiables is also creating a support circle. Yeah, so I think it is most important that, you know, children feel that genuine sense of belonging. So I think that, you know, every child who walks into our classroom should feel that this is a safe space where they are accepted for who they are, you know, and I also want them to know that I've got their backs. So but I mean, getting their backs, I mean, that I've got their backs is not about, you know, lowering their expectations. And it's also not about being that pillow for them to fall back on. I think it's more about being that, you know, what President Taman mentioned about the springboard, being that springboard for them to bounce back, you know, when they have a fall. So it's about, you know, supporting them. It's about standing with them through challenging times. Cheering them on, advocating for them, and also celebrating their efforts. You know, so when students know that they belong and they know that there is someone who truly believes in themselves, they will be more willing to take risks, learn new things, persevere, and also to discover what they're capable of. Yeah.
I mean, it's so nuanced, isn't it? Trying to understand this, but a springboard, I like that. And you made a very important point, I think, that it's not about lowering expectations, but instead about being the more knowledgeable other that raises the child, but is there in the event that the child needs additional help and elevates them with kindness. So as much as we want to be that springboard, we also acknowledge that there are constraints when it comes to teaching in a classroom, right? So these constraints are genuine, but then there are some challenges which are not quite real, but they're actually based on myths and misconceptions. So Pris, what myths about learning differences do you still encounter when you talk to teachers who are teaching in classrooms?
Well, I think June and I, both of us, have been doing a lot of teacher training in schools. You know, we often get a lot of questions from parents, not parents, but teachers that, oh, you know, so in my class, if I have one student with dyslexia, so I will teach him in this way. And then if I have another student with ADHD, I will teach her in that way. So, and teachers often think that there's one specific way or there's a certain specific way of, you know, supporting children with a diagnosis. And then they will also ended up worrying that, you know, if I were to cater to this particular student, what's going to happen to the rest of my students in the class? You know, so if I'm going to pay more attention on him or her at the expense of the other students in my class, then is it being fair? But the thing is that there's actually no real need to differentiate instructions in the classroom. So for example, you know, you have a student who has a diagnosis of dyslexia and ADHD, and this student is not able to, you know, and then you're going to do like this reading activity, and then this student is not actually able to sit through this whole reading activity for more than 10 minutes. So what will you do to, you know, engage this student? Perhaps you will plan a pre-reading activity to capture his attention, to activate his prior knowledge in hope that, you know, you can keep him engaged throughout this whole reading activity. So when you think about creating such an activity, will this activity actually benefit the rest of the students in the class, you know? So if it's yes, then why not just do the activity as a class,
right?
You know, and then at the same time, this pre-reading activity may also benefit the other students who may not have a diagnosis, but they happen to be slow readers, right? So I think teachers need to have these questions in mind, you know. When I plan this activity
for this particular student, does it benefit the other students? If it's yes, then just plan for the whole class, right? Yeah, so this is what we call the application of universal design learning principles in the classroom. So it's just making the classroom an environment whereby learning is made much more accessible for all. Yeah.
Can I share something that I learned from a school?
Sure.
Okay, so there's this school. They actually print A3 copies of the Chinese spelling list for the students. So it came about because they were printing it for just a few dyslexic students in the level, right? But they realized that the other students can also benefit from an enlarged font.
Yep.
You know how complicated Chinese characters are, right? Yeah, so that practice became commonplace throughout the level. So it's not just for these dyslexic students that I cater this for, but that this practice benefits the rest. So therefore, I do it for the rest of the students and everyone benefits.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this is another example of the application of universal design, isn't it?
Yes.
That's right.
Well, I have another one, and it might sound a bit controversial, but I call it the myth of disability. So by looking at a child as just dyslexic and nothing more, parents and students have sometimes told me, they sometimes said to me that they are excluded from certain activities because it was felt that their time might be better spent on trying to overcome their challenges, or maybe they just can't do it. It's going to be difficult for them. So it's a true story here that I'm going to be sharing. So this child is quite dramatic and enjoys drama and musicals, and she's quite expressive. But there was this competition in school where they were choosing a narrator, and she wasn't invited to participate, right? So she was disappointed. So when I asked the school about it, they said, she's got dyslexia. She's already going to be struggling to read, So, I don't think this is time well spent also because she might have other things to focus on. So I do want to stress that the teacher was coming from a place of concern. Right? They didn't want the child to feel pressure, neither did they want the child to experience failure. But I think all of us will agree that failure sometimes is good as long as you know that there's someone standing behind you.
Yep, true.
Failure actually propels you forward,
That's right.
So I do want to say that the teacher was just concerned. But we did try to persuade the teacher, and the teacher eventually said, yeah, sure, let's give it a shot. And she was allowed to audition. She practiced hard. I can attest to that. And another happy ending here, she was selected as the narrator.
Oh, wow, amazing.
Great.
Yeah.
So I think one of the misconceptions here is the label itself. And so I call it the myth of disability. So we must look past the labels because as much as the labels provide us with the resources and an ability to understand the learner and maybe what kind of support will benefit the learner, individuals with dyslexia or any other learning difference, there's so much more than these definitions can be. And as a result of these definitions, they should not be denied an opportunity to explore other things that give them joy and things that bring interest into their everyday lives,
That's right.
Yeah.
So I must say that one of the things is this girl was very determined. So she would practice every day. And we, of course, encouraged her. We always praised her when we noticed that there were improvements in her expression. And we even recorded every practice session so she could herself see the progress she was making. So how she's improved from, say, the first one to the third one, etc. So she was making good progress. And of course, like I mentioned, she was selected as a narrator. But what about a child who's struggling and doesn't show much progress? So, Edmen, how would you encourage such a child?
I often remind my students and sometimes myself as well that life is much bigger than just academics, and there are multiple pathways to success. In fact, the story that you shared earlier about this girl, there is a conversation between the teacher and the parent and the girl, and this is a discussion whereby they are trying to decide which is the best path for the child, whether the child should focus a little bit more time on the academics or whether she should explore an opportunity to excel on the stage, right? So I bring the conversation back to the successful readers I spoke about earlier on my research. So that is the group of readers that showed a lot of perseverance. And what this group of readers did was what I think the teacher of your example was suggesting. Right? So they focused on the weaknesses of the child, and they were really encouraging, supporting these children who struggle with reading. And because of this support system, the group of readers I investigated actually excelled in reading and became very resilient readers. Right. So this is one perspective of an example of the story. And then I also bring you back to the boy I spoke of earlier, right? The first teenage boy I taught when I was first a teacher. So this was an example of a child that grew up struggling with reading throughout his years. So even when he went into post-secondary school, he continued to struggle with reading. But what happened was he eventually found a job that required very little reading and writing and a lot of hands-on work. And he really excelled at it, and he's doing very well right now. So what is common in these two stories is that for both cases, whether or not you are working on your weaknesses or whether you found a strength, is that they found a very strong sense of purpose. Right? So both stories show how important it is for students to find opportunities to build this sense of competence, this sense of I know I can do it, whether it's something that's very difficult to them or whether something that comes naturally to them. So both journeys are equally valid. They are both successful. And really, I think what is important to all of us is that we need to celebrate the diverse successes of our students. We need to continue to encourage them, even though sometimes in the perspective of academics, the progress might feel a little slow.
Yeah, agree. So I think from what we have shared so far, I can gather 3 key points that very much aligns with the self-determination theory. I guess you have heard that the 3 key things will be, the firstly is the sense of competence. I think having that first taste of success, whether or not it's academic or it's non-academic, I think it's very important to build children's confidence and that sense of competence. And then secondly is autonomy. Giving children that choice and being able to, discover what they are good at and how they can leverage on their strengths, actually empowers them to take ownership and take charge of their own journey.
That's
right? And lastly is that connectedness, feeling connected to teachers, to their peers, to the environment, whether or not it's with the school or with even at the DAS, I think children need that sense of belonging to thrive, right? While we say that, it takes a village to raise a child, but, building that village requires good partnerships with parents, with teachers, with schools, right?
For sure.
So, however, it may not be that easy because of the differing perspectives and opinions of, from various people. So, Geetha, I see your smile. So I'm curious. So based on your experiences, how do you handle differences in opinions between parents, teachers, and even specialists like us?
Yeah, so, I'm also smiling because I'm thinking of this British comedian. So this British comedian was once asked, and he has this as a part of his routine, a question and answer with the audience. So he was once asked, what is your advice on parenting? So, he's a comedian. So his first response was birth control.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Right?
Okay.
But okay, so when pressed for a more serious response, right? He said this. He said, hard decisions now, easy life later. And
What does
I
it
think
mean?
I think that's a reminder to ourselves when it comes to mediating. Some things may seem hard now, right? But if we persevere, eventually it will ease into an easy life. So let me elaborate a little bit more. Okay. So whenever there are differing opinions, I think it does become a challenge. Of course, ideally, we want everyone to agree, right? Parents, teachers, students, everyone says yes to whatever you're proposing. But that doesn't often happen, right? Teachers that I've spoken to in my research and outside of my research have shared the challenges they face when they try to encourage parents to accept that their children may need additional help. Because sometimes parents are in denial or it's really their anxiety, right? Preventing them from accepting that this might be a possibility. But the same can be said for parents who have told me that, they've tried to get some support and help from teachers or schools and they're not able to get them easily. So in my experience, when it comes to managing these sort of differing opinions, I think it's two key things. One is always to be respectful in our communication, always respectful communication, and to give feedback in a constructive manner. Okay, so it's respectful communication and constructive feedback. I mean, I would go as far as saying take the teacher out for a cup of coffee or tea, whichever preferred beverage is, right? Or, if you're a teacher, show the parent how hard the student is trying.
Yeah.
And I mean, the same thing we've said about children, forming connections requires a degree of understanding and an effort to try and understand. So whatever is holding the teacher or the parent back in agreeing with you, it would be for you to investigate, try to understand and build that relationship with them, because it takes, I think, Pris, you said it takes an ecosystem of support to help a child, right? So if it can be a bit frustrating and tedious at the start. I mean, so, during when you ask why, right? Hard decisions now, easy life later, because it can be tedious, it can be difficult, it can feel like it's never ending.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
But I think this sort of respectful communication and constructive feedback and really making an effort to understand the other party's perspective will lead to an easy life later, where there is some sort of agreement on how we should move ahead in supporting that child.
That's right. Yeah, I think earlier on you actually mentioned about parents who are very protective about their children, who may not see what the teacher sees. But on the other side, there are also, I think, parents who are very upset with the children. And I've encountered parents like that. So for me as an educator, I like to think of myself as a peacemaker between the child and the parent. So, our children with learning and behavioral challenges, they are often caught in a tough cycle. They are chastised in school, right, for their bad behavior. And if the teacher simply passes that message home to the parents, they are likely to be scolded again at home.
Yep.
And that's not something that I want to do as an educator, passing negativity from the classroom into the home. So instead, I try to be the one who passes on positivity. So I make it a point to always highlight students' strengths to parents, especially the ones that parents may not always be able to see. So let me share a personal story. I usually don't remember much of what is said in parent-teacher conferences.
Oh,
no. But there is one teacher who told me something I have not forgotten till this day. So that teacher told me how my son gave up his recess to put up Chinese New Year decorations on the class notice board. So he's in an all-boys school and, in an all-boys school, that's not a cool thing to do, right? But he did it anyway because no one stayed back to help the teacher. So when she related that incident to me, it brought tears to my eyes because as a boy with ADHD and dyslexia, he doesn't often hear affirming words in school. And so that one moment of recognition meant so much to me. Yeah. So that's the kind of impact that teachers can have, bringing hope and light to parents. And that's really what I strive to do as an educator. Of course, I think there are times when educators do need to raise concerns about behavior, right? But even then, I think it makes a big difference if we can also offer suggestions. So this way, the conversation shifts from being a complaint session to a constructive and collaborative one.
Yeah. No, I do agree with you. I think in terms of giving feedback, it shouldn't just be about what they can or should be doing, but rather what you've been doing that has worked, and is there something we can do together then to help this child?
That's
you
right.
know?
Yeah.
Yes.
So the two things I like about what you said, one is you being the peacemaker and one you spreading positivity. I think that is really important.
Right.
And this is actually a very powerful thing that the community can do. How the child develops involves so many different individuals. So parent, teacher, and other stakeholders. And because you are both educator and parent, you're able to see both sides of the story and how you're able to be that peacemaker. Right. So in my perspective, I feel that one of the strongest things that a community can do is really offer a very consistent cycle of support. So this is really the collaboration between the teacher, the students, the parents, as well as the different stakeholders, right? But I think the reality is that not every child will meet perfect adults. I think we have encountered all of that. And I think if I were to be very honest, I have moments whereby I fall short as well, so I'm not that perfect adult.
We
as well.
all have those.
Yes.
Right. So we do
are
need
humans.
To, we do need to admit that. And I think what really matters is that you need to be there to show up with compassion to the child, to create that safety net that Priscilla you have mentioned earlier. And this really helps to nurture the resilience in the children.
That's right.
Right. So again, I bring back my research, the successful readers, right? So they were very successful in reading despite their challenges and despite their struggles. And what I found in that research was the reason why they were successful was because when they had parents who really supported them along the way. And there were some without parents present because the parents are very busy working. They had the teachers that were on board. And for those that did not have parents or teachers, there was somebody else. So there was at least one significant individual. Right. So what I am really hoping that all of us and the audience who is listening to this podcast would hear is that can you be that person to step up for that child and to do something for that child? So instead of waiting for somebody else to do it. Right. So with all of this in mind and knowing that our teachers out there have very good intentions, but sometimes they face a lot of limitations. So I'm just wondering who in an educational setting can best help teachers achieve their aims for their students.
Right. I think Priscillia and I have been to many schools, and we noticed that when teachers and SEN officers are well supported, the children will be well supported. So we often hear educators say the kids today are so different. Really, I think teachers today are working with a generation shaped by a very different world, very different from what we grew up in. So unlike us, these children are born into an age of instant access, where answers are a click away, where waiting feels unnecessary and remembering isn't required at all, right? But managing these executive function challenges can be deeply demanding for our educators, not to mention the additional learning needs. And so to help educators cope, we really need to equip them, give them a real toolbox of strategies. And when teachers feel supported, the children will thrive. Because in the end, supporting teachers is supporting students.
Yeah, I do echo what you say, June. Supporting teachers is supporting students. Supporting teachers is not just limited to, equipping them with that toolbox of strategies. It also means, caring for their overall well-being as well. So, although I have not taught in a class of 40, right? I mean, in DAS, we teach about 4 to 5 students in a class, right? So supporting a class of 4 or 5 with highly varied abilities is already challenging enough. So, even though, we started off being trained with all the knowledge and skills, we should be well equipped in managing these students. There's always moments of self-doubt, right? And also that pressure from due to parents, anxiety, as well as the expectations. So there'll be times whereby, you do feel very overwhelmed. And I believe, teachers in schools, right? They also feel that that overwhelming feeling as well. So just like what, Edmen previously mentioned, having that significant figure, right? Being there for them and understand them. I think teachers need that as well, right? Having that understanding leader makes a lot of difference, right? It is like, someone who's not only believing in them and also, being able to support them in terms of like creating an environment whereby learning is made truly accessible for all students with varied abilities.
Yes, exactly. Well, we've really explored so many perspectives, and I really enjoyed this chat and session today. And there's so much more we could share if we have the time, right? But I think we do need to bring this conversation to a close. And I think as a closure, what I would like to do is really ask all of us this question to answer. So the question is really, what does success truly mean to our children?
To me, success is when a child is able to identify and tell you what they're good at. So for instance, it could be how sensitive they are. They recognize that they are sensitive and they can sense when their friend or even their parent needs a hug or help, right? So a child's ability to be able to tell that, okay, I have these strengths is, I think, the first step towards success. And when you look at successful dyslexics, a common factor that we can see is their awareness of what they're good at and how they zoom in on it. Right? So they know they're good at it and they go straight into it. And when a child can then say this about themselves and say it with belief and conviction, then, that to me is success, because that child then knows how and why they are a valuable member of society, and they can then dare to dream. They can go for it.
Right. Okay. Now, for me, I think success is simply this: when a child has the courage to try again. Our human brains, we are wired to crave comfort, right? So failure is not comfortable. But so if the child can actually go against that and try again, I think to me that is really bravery and courage, and that is success in itself. Just that courage to try again. Yeah, and but for them to actually do that, we also have to be their lifelong cheerleaders, the parents, the educators, those faithful ones waving the pom-poms, even when the cartwheel is completely off, they just continue cheering. Yeah, I think that's what we have to do as well.
Yeah. What you just said reminded me of this quote. Okay. Fail, try again, fail better.
Ah, nice.
A quick improvement.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. To me, success is not defined by academic performance, but by resilience. So resilience is something that you have mentioned. So failing and then doing it over and over again. Right. So this is really the ability to learn independently at your own pace. So when children believe in themselves and they keep going on despite their challenges, they carry with them the tools to navigate life with strength and adaptability. So very similar to what you have mentioned, June, is the ability to be resilient enough to go again and again.
Yeah. Well, I often remind my students, not to measure their success by comparing with other students.
That's very important.
It is very important. Because everyone have their own strengths and capabilities, right? So you may excel in one area, but you struggle in the other, while someone else may be doing so much better in that very thing that you're struggling with, right? But that doesn't make you any less capable, because everyone's just different. That uniqueness makes you different. So instead, I would encourage students to compare themselves. That they compare themselves with who they were before. So you look back at what you once found challenging, and then notice what you can do today that you couldn't do before. So I think that growth, no matter how small, is called success.
Yeah, that's so wonderfully said. So today, it is World Dyslexia Awareness Day, and I really want to wish all of us and the students out there many years of success.
Yep.
Yay!
Yes to that.
Cheers! Cheers to that.
Well, I told you it was going to be a good podcast, right? there's so much that resonates with me as a mother of children with learning differences. And so we have the panel here and we have lots of questions. I honestly don't feel like we're going to be able to get through them all. But let me introduce the panel again. So with us today, we have Dr. June Siew. She's the head of our DAS Academy. June's research was involved in education and the SEN officers. Then we have Dr. Geetha Shantha. She's head of our SpLD assessment services and our English language and literacy division and our staff professional development. And Geetha's research, if you didn't catch it, was on dyslexic strengths, on strengths. And then we have Dr. Priscillia Shen. Priscillia, she is the head of DAS International and our school-based programs. And Priscillia's research is in Chinese. And then lastly, you heard a lot about Edmen's research, Dr. Edmen Leong. Now, Edmen is our fresh doctor. He just got his title last week. So very exciting. Congratulations, Edmen. And Edmen's research is on reading. And we have a question here for Edmen because someone wants to know about that significant other. So we have a lot of questions. And as I said, this webinar, this podcast really resonated with me as a parent of children with learning differences. And as you can tell, 3 of the panel also have children with learning differences. And June, when you said, you remembered when your son helped put up the decorations, my son was the one that used to hold the door for the teachers and carry the stuff. And that's what that's what I've taken away from my parent-teacher interviews. Anyway, so we have a small time to answer some questions. And so how about I start with you, Edmen? Someone has asked about the significant figure in your research. And besides cheering them on and believing in them, what other practice or what practices should we be trying to do?
Can you hear me, Mel?
We can hear you, yes.
Yeah, okay. So perhaps I will share with you, this is really based on the results of the study I've conducted. So thank you for the question. But I think at the same time, I have personally experienced this as well. So you have mentioned one of the key things that help a child with dyslexia in motivating them to read is encouraging and cheering them on. That is accurate. On top of that, I think 2 other important things would be one is to advocate for them, because I think many times the other stakeholders around them might not be aware of some of their challenges. So it's important to advocate for them. So I did that for my children as well. The other important thing that this significant individual can do is actually to be able to identify some of the challenges that this child might have, because sometimes the challenges might be quite not that straightforward. So this individual will need to be able to seek out professionals to better understand what exactly the challenges are, and therefore be able to direct appropriate resources for your child. So that's my answer to the question.
Yeah. It also comes down to resilience, right? That perseverance and wanting to do it. Then that's where that significant other comes in. So we have a question here about how can you give some parents some tips on how to develop resilience? Who would like to take that one?
That's a large question, actually.
I know, it's a big question, right?
Yes, and maybe June, we should start.
Okay. I mean, given that Geetha and I both have children with SEN, dyslexia, and ADHD, we might be able to offer a parent's perspective. So I think it all starts with helping the child understand what dyslexia is.
Yes.
Right? Is it the same for you?
I agree. I mean, they do need to know why they're having these challenges.
That's right. Yeah.
It shouldn't come as a surprise to them. They should understand that this is not a choice that they are making. They're not deciding to perform poorly in school. And if we are able to help them understand why these challenges are surfacing,
holding them back.
correct,
Right.
that would, I think, give them a sense of understanding and hope that it's not them, that there is something that needs to change, or in terms of support, etc.
And I think in addition to that, I think helping them to be aware that, okay, these are maybe the areas that I'm not so good at yet, but there are also areas that I can do well. And of course, there will be maybe other non-academic skills that they can pick up, whether it's sports or cooking or culinary skills and all. Okay, but I think it's also important to recognize their qualities.
That's right.
Yeah, qualities like
Empathy.
yes,
Qualities like being able to listen, truly listen to what someone is saying to you, big picture thinking, problem solving,
That's right.
patience. These are all qualities as well, which are going to help an individual succeed. But that has to be shown to them.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think, yes, the parents as well as the educators, if we can put in this in our daily conversations. So it's not so deliberate, like, okay, we are going to have a talk here today. But it's really, in the small things that you see them do. I think it's like dropping that praise, like every other day. Yeah, and I think it will be part of them. And they will recognize themselves beyond, their limitations.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's really important that it is noticing, not praising. So it's not just, hey, good job, well done, but rather noticing what was done well. Oh, you took quite a bit of time to actually listen to this person and the issues they were having, and you gave sensible feedback. So that sort of recognition of what they are good at. And ultimately, what we want for them is to experience success. So they experience success either through things they have an interest in, or they have an innate ability in, right? And once they begin to experience this, and Bandura talked about this years ago, called it mastery success. Once they begin to experience this success, then the success no longer feels limited to those things that have been identified, because they begin to see themselves as people capable of doing more. And now they'll be willing to actually transfer that experience of trying, and that sense of resilience will transfer on to things that are harder and more effortful. And it is a bit of a journey, but it's very worthwhile in our experience.
And I think, sorry.
Okay. I mean, I just want to write on to your, sharing about experiencing success. I think experiencing success can also go through from a third person's perspective.
Yes.
Because parents ourselves also experience challenges, right? So how did we overcome them? I think it's also good to share with our children that, I once, had this problem or this issue, and how did I actually try to overcome it. I think that forms like a role model for your child to actually follow your footpath, to experience that success as well.
That's actually a very brilliant point. So Priscillia, that's absolutely true. I mean, when my daughter came to me and said she's struggling to make friends because her brother is very gregarious and easily makes friends, right? I realized that the only way I could help her understand that there was really nothing wrong with that, but there are things that we can learn, was to share that when I was younger, I too wasn't a natural social butterfly. And tell her that it's perfectly normal. And I think that's excellent advice, really.
Yes, and I think I like that schools, our mainstream schools, are also actually trying to recognize these qualities in children. So I think now it's like, I think they have awards day, right? And other than just the sports awards, academic awards, I think they all, and there's a lot of emphasis on character awards now. So while my child may not always get the academic awards or the sports awards, gets the character awards. So I think that's really balancing that whole equation, right?
Exactly. And I think as parents, we tend to measure so much on academics. It's the benchmark. You get this exam and you get this point, this mark. And then, but we have enough to expand our scope of what we think is success. I think, Priscillia, you said it really well at the end, where don't measure yourself against others, measure yourself against your own success and how that's incremental. And I know that when I talk to parents about education, very long journey. There's no instant success really, except when that light goes on. You know, when the kids and the light goes on, and all of a sudden they know something, and you think, oh wow, they've got it. But I say to parents that education is a long journey, and it can be, it's a roller coaster. But I love roller coasters. Some people don't. So getting the quick results can be frustrating. And so we just need to be able to measure ourselves. Also, adults need to be able to find that success, tease out what that success is.
Yes.
And so, the closing session today was just wonderful. I really appreciate that. I really feel as a parent, it very, very much resonates with how I helped my children. And I think you have to make a significant effort to tease out what their strengths are. I interview DAS students when they leave DAS for graduation, and I ask them a deliberate question: what's your strengths? And they sort of look at me and go, So I said, well, today you did a very good interview. You have very good EQ skills. You spoke brilliantly, or you had very good ideas. And he goes, oh, I didn't know that was a strength. I said, oh, it definitely is, especially in the workforce, right? In the workforce, if you can wax lyrical, and you can really communicate very well, then this is a significant strength.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
And I mean, we do empathize with parents, being parents ourselves, we do recognize that there is a lot of pressure to try and help their child succeed academically and get those grades. And I mean, at no point are we suggesting that is not important. I mean, being competent in literacy or numeracy and feeling a competent and confident student is a part of one's learning growth. However, that cannot be the only thing that defines you. And while it is challenging for parents, I think that mindset switch is essentially going to make the experience of growing up and the educational experience in general much more enjoyable. If we just make that switch from looking at the difficulties first and then switching it to looking at the abilities first.
Exactly. And it's making kids want to go to school, being confident enough to go to school, even though it's very challenging for them. So you don't want school to be that awful place where they don't succeed. You want to be able to tease out ways in which they can. Also comes back to teachers, teasing out the ways in which they can make their students shine. If it's not in maths, it might be how they organize their groups in maths, and lead their groups. Yeah.
I think
we have a lot of questions here. I'm sorry, guys. We have a question on technology. Are you interested to explore that? How much do we use technology now with our kids? And they are trained in text-to-speech and speech-to-text and AI, and all this will get them more functional and in higher education and adult life than the traditional instruction methods, especially in severe dyslexia.
Yeah.
Did you understand that?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'll just kick this off. So how much do we use technology? I think for the longest time, we've always said that technology is a leveler, right? So it levels the playing field. So we go right back down to what might now be considered rather old technology, such as, speech to print or, text to speech, etc. All the way up to AI-assisted sort of learning tools that are available. So technology certainly is an enabler, and we, of course, must use it to achieve that. In order to bring out what's within the child, we use technology to elevate what the child is thinking. So they might have a very complex idea, they might have a very complex thought, but putting it down in words may be where they're struggling, right? And if the reader is not able to fully grasp the complexity of that idea, then they've missed that opportunity. So that's where something like AI comes in to help to put those complex thoughts into a way that readers can appreciate. So, and of course, just following through that question, it's true. These are skills that are very valuable, especially when they go on to higher learning circumstances like tertiary education, and of course in the workplace. And so helping them to understand how best to use it critically, to use it in a way that empowers them, not strips them of their originality or authenticity, but rather enhances their product, their creativity. These would be the ways we would want to use technology to help our learners.
Maybe I can share also, because I used to support a secondary school student, and then after he has graduated, he came back to me again post-secondary level to ask me for more support, because he realized that he has dyslexia as well as dysgraphia, so he has difficulty with his writing and stuff like that. Even though his course of study is not something that I'm an expert in, but I think technology, learning how to use technology can actually help him in terms of organizing his ideas, helping him to keep notes and stuff like that. He used to be a very poor reader, but he managed to read better. But then, having to read articles is still a challenge. So using text to speech and things like that is very helpful for him. So it's not just about how much technology we should use, but how we should use technology to put our to help us overcome our challenges. And also I think talking about using AI, I think a lot of our students nowadays rely a lot on ChatGPT to help them solve a lot of their assignment problems. But I think there is actually a line between being reliant on technology and learning how to use technology creatively.
Exactly.
Don't let technology lead you by your nose, but actually make technology work for you. So that's actually the mindset that our children need to have nowadays.
It's a master-slave relationship.
Yes.
So you should always be the master of the technology.
Exactly.
Even for our adult students who have SEN, technology has liberated them. I've got a student who has been sitting on her dissertation for years, right? But then when ChatGPT came, AI came, I think that ability to actually just get to have a partner for idea generation, that really helped her. It made the first step for her so much easier. So I think for our kids with SEN, I think technology makes the first step a lot easier. And actually that first step has to be easy enough for our students to not procrastinate. Because they always think of the first step as, it's such a humongous task, I cannot do it. But I think what technology can do is to reduce the resistance to the first step. Then I think it's really helpful in getting them started. That task initiation is so hard in many of our children, right? But I think at the end of it, then what's next, right? Now that we are there is an influx of knowledge and all, I think our students and our children need to learn how to think critically and creatively. So I think that's really our next challenge now, to help students be thinkers, because they are going to be faced with an influx of knowledge, and you can't just use every knowledge that you see, because it's not going to help you. At the end of it, you will be lost. So I think as much as we embrace technology, at the same time, we need to give a new set of skills, which is really to help them to be critical and creative thinkers.
Which means an evolution in the way we teach.
Right.
So we've always talked about critical thinking skills and about ways through which one will ascertain if this information is important or not. Now they really have to, we as teachers now need to extend that teaching to include the use of AI. So how would you use AI judiciously? How would you use AI critically and not lose your personal voice in that process? And Judy, we're talking about the starting point, right? The initiation of a task. It's really like having a non-judgmental friend, isn't it? So when you start that process, this person's not going to critique you, overly critique you. They're generally quite nice, these AI sponsors, right? But it's a nudge towards the right direction if you're asking the right prompts and questions.
Well, our time is over. We've run out of time. You are having so much good time together. But if people are still willing to stick around, I'd probably like you to have one final say. Is there something you'd like to add on today that you feel that you can help a parent support their child and to be able to feel confident in digging out their strengths? Edmen.
Yeah, I think there are a couple of comments or questions about helping parents understand the children a little bit better, right? So I think I do have some thoughts. So I think I just wanted to share. I think some of you, if you've heard the webinar, you're aware that I'm a foster parent. So I think I have had the experience of struggling as a parent, right? Because on top of the SpLDs, I also had to deal with a lot of change in the child's life. So I think there was a period of time whereby I struggled because when I was a new foster parent, I was putting on the hat of a teacher, right? So I was, like one of the parents was saying, I was trying to ensure that this child is able to keep up academically. And then it was over time that I realized that even though I am very well versed with all these spelling rules and how to deal with learners with dyslexia, but what I needed to do was be a parent and not a teacher, right? So that's one of the lessons I've learned. So this is something that we can teach to parents. Another experience I had with another child, I think this is to answer the question on parents expecting quick results. I think for parents of children who struggle with multiple areas, one of the challenges that the parents would face is to actually identify that range of challenges and really pick up what they want to prioritize on. So I had this experience as well because one of my foster children, because he had so many different challenges, at first I wanted to address all of them, right? So I had to go for therapy services like 3 or 4 times a week. It was overwhelming for me. It was overwhelming for him as well, right? So I think to put yourselves in the shoes of these parents, some of them might also be struggling. So I think it's really conversations between professionals to then decide together with the parent, the child, and these professionals to decide what is the priority and what we should focus on first, right? Yeah. So what I have to. I'm not sure if the rest have anything to add on.
I guess for me, I think parents and educators have very similar worries, about their children or about their students not being able to do academically well or not being able to cope with the year-end exams or the national examinations. I mean, well, it's true we can't run away from these facts, but the thing is, I often when I talk to parents or I talk to the teachers is that while we have that angle in mind, we also need to appreciate the process. I mean, education is a marathon. They go through primary school, they go through secondary school, right? Do you want them to enjoy their learning process, or you want them to go through this 10 to 11 years of painful journey, and then realizing by the time when they graduate, realizing that how lousy they are or how helpless they are because of the constant failures. I think failures, but then again, we also have to think about how they are actually in terms of like picking up what they are learning as well and their attitude towards learning. I think that is much more important.
Because that's lifelong, isn't it?
And I think as a parent, right? I think sometimes we feel that why are you still not passing your exams, or the child might tell you I work so hard but the results are not showing. Right? My son just told me that, right? But I just want to actually hug him and tell him that actually, thank you for showing up. I think that's really, that's the only most important thing. Thank you for showing up because it shows your courage to try again and again and again. And I think that's precious.
Of course.
And parents must not lose sight of that, or educators must not lose sight of that.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I mean, a lot of us here, I think all of us here share very similar perspectives on how best to handle this. The one thing that we always say to parents is that love the whole child, right? And whether they've been diagnosed with a specific learning difficulty or difference or not, don't allow the label to define the entire child. Show the child that you love the child, despite of whatever the labels might demonstrate to you as being difficulties in their school experience. And just to, I suppose, support the parents in this journey, because I know it is not an easy experience to have. Parents should really also be looking out for parent support groups and a community to support them.
Yes.
And that's very important. You are not alone in this journey. And it's important that you hear from others, their experiences, their ways of achieving success, and recognize that you are a part of a community as well, and so is your child. Neither of them, the parent or the child, is alone. And honestly, our community, the people with learning difficulties or differences, have done some remarkable things in this world, and they will continue. They will continue.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And you know what? Our Des Academy parent workshop is a great way to start.
That's right. Yeah.
So
It definitely is. It
parents
definitely is.
Yeah, and then forming chat groups after that. And I mean, they share their problems like during the workshop, because it's an interactive workshop.
That's right.
And that's really the best platform to start, like to get to know parents who are like-minded, who face the same issues as you. Yeah.
Well chosen.
Yeah.
And the DAS is always here to help. Every teacher here is very passionate about supporting kids, like you guys. All four of you, you've been with us for a very long time. So I'd just like to say, I'm sorry, we've run out of time, and I'm very inspired by what you had to say today. Everything resonated with me, as it did with a lot of the comments that we have already received through the question and answer. And I know how difficult it is to get you four guys together. You're all so busy, but I really feel like we could run this again, and I'm sure you will have just as much to say. And so I'd like to say thank you very much here today, and I hope that what you've had to say helps someone out there who is struggling today. So thank you very much, and this video will be online soon.
Thank you very much, Deborah.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Happy World Dyslexia Day.
Awareness Day, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.